Well, here we are. We're back at the old community house, but on the other side. Okay? You can see there's a little park here. There's an old grindstone from Grindstone City, and there's an old ship's anchor. It's an old anchor. Yep, it is. It's from an old ship. They actually found the anchor out in the harbor. Ship sank after a storm. And they kept the anchor, and they're using it now as a kind of a decoration. I'm going to walk over here and show you the Harbor Beach Community House. Now, we took a look at it, but here's a sign that kind of shows you the different things this town had. Okay? It'll show you the different things. Now look at these old-timey cars. Back in Harbor Beach, oh my God, back in the turn of the century. And in the olden days, this was called the Opera House. It wasn't the community building, it was the Opera House. And I'll swing over here and show you the Great Fire that actually destroyed the Opera House, and then they built it back to be the community house. And I told you that the community house has a gymnasium, and they're actually using it in 1948, they used it for a great big banquet room. And they had lots and lots of people who had a great big dinner. Now, it is a gymnasium, but people used it for a banquet room. Then after the fire and they built the Opera House back, this is the way it looked, which is very, very, very similar today. What I'm going to show you, again, is that decoration. And here's the crazy thing. Nobody seems to know it but me. They came in here and they built that slab, and they put an anchor on it, and they put the grindstone. But underneath it, all that stuff is buried a casket. Yes, a casket. And in the casket are all kinds of things from the 1900s. There's uniforms from World War I. There's magazines from the 1920s. There are actually bottles of whiskey buried in there, along with many, 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 many letters that people wrote for their relatives who weren't even born. And all that stuff was then sealed and buried underground, and it's supposed to be dug up in 2032. 2032. And we're supposed to then the city of Harbor Beach, is supposed to try to find the people that those letters were written to, like grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And then they're going to be selling like the old uniforms and magazines. Yes, and they're even going to be selling the whiskey that was 12 years old when it was buried. So, kind of a crazy thing. If you're around in 1932 or 2032, you ought to come over here and enjoy the digging up of this time vault. Now I keep coming back to this area, and this is our little Veterans Park, very tiny, but you can see it has the American flag, and it has benches for people to sit. We have a lot of ceremonies like a Memorial Day and 4th of July and things of that nature right around this little area. Tiny, tiny, tiny little park. And as I walk up closer and closer and closer and zoom in, you can see what it says. Dedicated to the honor and sacrifice of the men and women who serve this country. Okay? Let none forget they gave their all, which means they gave their lives, and falter not when the call came. And over here we have a little area. You can see they built a new clock here in town. It's along what we call the bike path. It's a kind of a cool clock. And that's about that. We're now going to go down to the factory area and take a look at other things in Harbor Beach.